So about a month and a bit ago, I posted the first chapter of my webcomic, Key Subscription, on basically any webcomic site I knew. Also, for the past 3 years, I've been at university studying to make comics. So I've basically gone from not knowing anything about making comics to being extremely comfortable. There's obviously a lot for me to learn, but that's probably just anatomy mostly. But that's not important right now, that's a future me issue. I wanted to make a video on my entire process of making a chapter of a comic. I need to preface this with, my process is chaotic as it is torturous. Each different step I show you here, I have to complete before moving on to the next part. So like, I lined 25 pages of a comic over 7 weeks before I coloured any of it. This is why my speed paints will be jumping pages a lot, but hopefully my commentary will be able to help you guys figure out where we are. Step 1. Dividing my outline. So my first step is making sure I know roughly what I want to happen in each arc, then dividing it into what I want to appear in each chapter. Essentially, I'm very much of an over-planner when it comes to stories. Emotional beats are planned first, and then I build my plot around it. Because of this, my incomplete outline is sitting at 50k words. Luckily for me, I only need to worry about the first 1,000 words. Seeing as I'm only making the first chapter, it's pretty self-contained, and I don't need any extra steps. And I can just take this outline and make a dialogue script from it. Step 2. Dialogue scripting. I always prioritize the dialogue in my scripting phase, because you can really notice bad dialogue in whatever medium you're in. I also do this first so that conversations flow naturally and don't feel like they're jumping around too much. When I'm writing these, I like to use a very simplified version of a theatre script. Essentially, you're seeing a lot of dialogue, then very few actions when necessary. Sometimes I add in emotions if I think I'll forget how they're supposed to be read. Step 3. Comic scripting and thumbnailing. After the dialogue script is complete to the point I'm happy with it, I then go in and start making a comic script. Now this way of doing a script is considered industry standard, used by Marvel and DC Comics, 2000 AD, and some other major and minor publishing houses. This has been taught to me while I've been at university, and if people want me to do a whole breakdown video on how to make one, I am happy to do so. However, if your scripts don't look like this, that's absolutely fine too. I like the thumbnail at the same time as my scripting, so I get a feel of how the page will look on a very small scale. It helps me visualize how much is going on and if the panels are readable. This is also the part of my scripting process where I add in all of my written detail, such as how many characters are in the background, what part of the panel is someone standing on, is there any key details I have to include for foreshadowing purposes. This is the part where I get it all down onto the paper and figuring out. Step 4. Digital sketches, borders, and speech bubbles. So once that's all done, I transfer my traditional thumbnailing to a digital file. I use Clip Studio Paint for this. The border tool is super helpful for figuring out the kind of space you've got going on, and if you're using a page format with guidelines, you can use them too to figure out how much space you want on either side. I don't like the blue space around the borders once they've been made. It makes me feel claustrophobic, which is weird because this is a digital file, but in order to fix this, I rasterize the layer and then just put it on alpha lock so I can't move it around and I can't erase anything. Basically, I can't mess with it once it's done. The next thing I do is go and copy and paste all my dialogue into bubbles. The font I'm using is called Anime Ace 3, and I brought a license for this. Licenses are something you don't really have to consider if you're just posting online, but if you're wanting to sell your work in any capacity, you'll have to check the allowances on that specific font you want to use. I used this font when I sold at MCM, so I brought the cheapest license I could, which was around £30. It allows me to use it and for other people if I ever built a team out. There are specific clauses for indie comic creators, but I just wanted to make sure my ass was covered, so I just brought it. I didn't want to wake up in the middle of the night and worry if my license covered me or anything. I'll leave a link to the one that I used in the description if people want to check it out. I then go in and start adding basic sketches, getting a feel of the panel space and seeing what could work. I always do this after I put my bubbles in, because I can work my art around the bubbles rather than the bubbles moving around the art. It's a very difficult thing to balance both of them, and I find doing it this way around makes it seem more natural on the page. Step 5. Procreate backgrounds. Essentially, this step has been added in because I hate the Clip Studio perspective rulers. I tried using them for a short comic and I wanted to cry, so I went back to my trusty old Procreate. I find Procreate so much easier because you can actively manipulate the rulers and how much they move, so it helps me visualize the made up background I'm making. It cuts my background time down from about 4 days to 4 hours, so I think I'm going to continue to use this method. I also usually do this in a blue colour so that it stands out against my red thumbnailing. Also, fun fact, light blue is traditionally used for sketching because it disappears when it's being scanned in. So, that's why a lot of traditional artists use blue ink. But once I finish all my background perspective boxes, I go back into Clip Studio and jump into lining. Step 6, line art. Now, I kind of went a little bit insane during this project, and I knew that I was on a time limit, so I did everything I possibly could to cut down on the amount of time it takes me to make something. Usually I figure out details in the background and then go in and add anatomy bases, the kind of thing you used to see on DeviantArt back in the day. For this project, I did not do that. I just went straight in and aligned it all. I think maybe I could add some brief sketches in next time because the eyes I drew looked different in every panel. But other than that, I think this really spread up my process, which was the plan, and I executed it brilliantly. I'm using the real G pen for this, with its sizing being anywhere between 10 and 30, depending on where my perspective is sitting. I also used the straight line tool, maybe too much according to my lecturers, but I really struggled to figure out what weight it should be. Eventually, I settled on 5 to 10 because it always shows up bigger than the actual line art tool. Step 7, color/black and white. On to my final stage, coloring and screen toning. This is by far the easiest stage for me. It's less time consuming than the rest, and I only really need to pay attention when making sure the continuity is right. I made a chart of different color values that correspond to different densities of screen tones and shade in that color value. Shading with just straight up screen tones hurts my eyes, so this was a fun way to make sure that I don't go blind. Once everything I wanted to shade was done in that color, I just pressed a button to the left and then pulled it all the way to 85 and boom, screen tone complete. I also went in and added a bit of hatching to the faces just to bring out more depth, and then I've completed chapter 1. If you're interested in seeing me do this in real time, all of my VODs have been saved to my VOD channel, which you can find in the links in the description, or you can follow me on Twitch where, hopefully, I am planning to start up streaming again soon and stream my process for new chapters I'm making. I'm hoping this video was helpful to at least one person in seeing how someone makes a comic, and make sure to subscribe if it did help you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.